Captain James Walker stood at the main window of Earth Defense Station Alpha, his hands clasped behind his back. The sight before him would have been impossible to believe just 24 hours ago. Massive alien ships, each one bigger than the largest city on Earth, hung in space like dark clouds before a storm. They formed a perfect ring around Earth, their metal hulls gleaming under the sun's light. "How many ships now?" he asked, his voice steady despite the worry in his heart. Lieutenant Andy Brown, his most trusted crew member, checked the screens again. 532, sir. They're still coming through that wormhole near Mars. Walker nodded slowly. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of just 43 ships. Even their most advanced weapons would be like throwing pebbles at a mountain against these alien vessels. The main screen lit up again. Another message from the Galactic Council. They had been sending the same message every hour, in perfect English, which made the whole thing even more disturbing. They had clearly been watching Earth for a long time. "People of Earth," the message began, the words appearing in bright blue letters. "The Galactic Council has determined that your species poses an unacceptable risk to galactic peace. Your rapid technological advancement, combined with your species' aggressive nature, requires immediate containment. Submit to Council authority, and you will be granted protected status. Resist, and we will maintain this blockade indefinitely. Nothing will leave Earth's atmosphere without our permission." Walker turned away from the message. He had memorized it by now. Any response from the World Council? "Yes, sir," Brown said, pulling up another screen. "They're refusing to surrender. They say humanity won't bow to threats, no matter how big the ships are." Walker almost smiled. It was such a human response, stubborn to the core. But he worried it might also be a fatal mistake. The station's alert system suddenly blared to life. Red lights flashed across the command center as new data poured in. "Sir," Brown's voice was tense. "They're deploying some kind of energy field between their ships. It's forming a complete sphere around Earth." Walker rushed to the tactical display. The space between the alien ships was now filled with shimmering energy, like a giant soap bubble forming around the planet. Their sensors showed it extended from the upper atmosphere all the way out past the moon's orbit. "Get me the lab readings," Walker ordered. "What are we dealing with?" Dr. Lisa Grant, the station's chief scientist, was already analyzing the data. Her fingers flew across her keyboard as readings poured in. "It's like nothing we've seen before, Captain. The field seems to distort space itself. Any object trying to pass through would be, well, torn apart at the atomic level." Walker's jaw tightened. "So they're not just threatening to block us in. They actually can." "Yes, sir," Grant replied. "And based on these energy readings, they could maintain this barrier for years using the power from just one of their ships." The command center fell silent as this news sank in. Earth was truly trapped. Walker walked slowly around the tactical display, studying the pattern of alien ships. Something about this didn't add up. Why go to all this trouble? He wondered aloud. With their technology, they could have simply destroyed us if they wanted to. "Sir," Brown called out, "we're getting reports from all major cities. People are starting to panic as the alien ships become visible to the naked eye. They're lighting up the night sky like new stars." Walker pressed a button on his command console. "This is Captain Walker to all Earth Defense Force personnel. I know you're seeing what I'm seeing. I know you're worried about your families, your homes, your future. But remember your training. Remember who we are. Humanity didn't get this far by giving up when things looked impossible." He paused, watching his crew stand a little straighter at their stations. "The aliens think they know us," he continued. "They think they can predict what we'll do. But there's one thing they don't understand about humans. We're at our best when our backs are against the wall. For now, we watch, we learn, we prepare. Walker out." As he finished speaking, a new alert flashed across the main screen. The World Council was calling an emergency session. Representatives from every nation would meet to discuss their response to the blockade. "Sir," Brown said quietly, "what do you think they'll decide?" Walker watched as another massive alien ship emerged from the wormhole near Mars, taking its position in the blockade formation. "They'll do what humans always do, Lieutenant. They'll look for another way." In the hours that followed, Walker coordinated with military commands worldwide. While the politicians debated, the armed forces of Earth prepared for every possible scenario. Nuclear weapons were ready, though everyone knew they would be useless against the alien ships. Special forces went on high alert, though how do you fight an enemy that won't even come down to your planet? The aliens, for their part, simply waited. Their ships maintained perfect position, the energy barrier between them humming with enough power to vaporize anything that tried to pass through it. They sent no more messages after their initial ultimatum. They took no aggressive actions, they simply waited. As the first day of the blockade drew to a close, Walker found himself back at the main window. The sun was setting behind the Earth, and the alien ships were casting long shadows across the planet's surface. In cities below, millions of people were looking up at the same sight, wondering what would happen next. His personal tablet beeped, a message from his daughter back on Earth. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" Walker looked out at the ring of alien ships, at the shimmering barrier that held humanity prisoner on their own planet. But then he noticed something else. In labs and military bases and secret facilities around the world, lights were burning late into the night. Human minds were already at work, looking for solutions, thinking in ways the aliens couldn't predict. He typed back a response. "Yes, sweetheart. Remember what I always tell you. Humans are really good at finding doors where others only see walls." As if to emphasize his point, a priority message flashed across his screen. It was marked with the highest security clearance, coming from a facility he'd never heard of, deep beneath the Mojave Desert. The message contained just 4 words. "Project Mole is ready." Walker allowed himself a small smile. The aliens had built their walls strong and high, thinking they had trapped humanity inside. But they were about to learn what every other barrier in human history had learned. When humans can't go through something, they find a way to go around it, under it, or through spaces their opponents never even knew existed. The blockade of Earth had begun. But far from containing humanity, it had only set the stage for their greatest leap forward. 500 feet beneath the Mojave Desert, Dr. Emma Reed walked through a tunnel that officially didn't exist. The walls around her hummed with power as machines worked day and night. The air smelled like metal and ozone, the scent of human ingenuity hard at work. "Status report," she called out as she entered the main lab. The room was huge, carved right out of the bedrock. Dozens of scientists and engineers moved between computer stations and strange machines that glowed with blue light. Mark Taylor, her chief engineer, looked up from his screens. "The quantum tunnel is stable, Dr. Reed. We've successfully sent test objects through spaces smaller than an atom. They're coming out exactly where we aimed them." Emma nodded, trying to hide her excitement. For 10 years, they had worked on Project Mole in complete secrecy. While the world's attention had been focused on building better spaceships, her team had been finding ways to skip through space itself. "Show me the latest test," she said. Mark pressed some buttons, and a video appeared on the main screen. It showed a small metal ball, about the size of an apple. As they watched, the ball seemed to fade away like mist, then appeared again on another platform 30 feet away. "How long did that transfer take?" Emma asked. "Less than a microsecond," Mark replied with a grin. The alien sensors didn't even blink. As far as they can tell, nothing happened at all. Emma allowed herself a small smile. The alien blockade had been in place for 3 days now. 3 days of their massive ships hanging in the sky, their energy barrier keeping humanity trapped on Earth. But they were looking for ships trying to break through their barrier. They weren't looking for people walking through the spaces between spaces. Her tablet beeped. A message from Captain Walker up in the defense station. "Coming down for inspection. Will arrive in 20 minutes." Everyone, Emma called out to her team. Look sharp. Earth Defense Force is coming to see what we've built. The next 20 minutes were a blur of activity. Though the lab was already clean and organized, everyone wanted it to look perfect. This wasn't just a military inspection. This was humanity's best hope for fighting back against the blockade. Captain Walker arrived exactly on time, accompanied by Dr. Lisa Grant from the space station. Emma noticed they both looked tired. Nobody in the Earth's defense forces had gotten much sleep since the aliens arrived. Dr. Reed, Walker said, shaking her hand. I've read your report 3 times. I still can't quite believe what you're suggesting is possible. Emma led them to the main testing area. It's not just possible, Captain. We've done it over 2,000 times now. Would you like to see? She nodded to Mark, who started the next test. This time, they used a larger object, a metal cube about the size of a small car. The cube sat on a platform surrounded by rings of strange technology. What you're about to see, Emma explained, isn't teleportation. We're not breaking the laws of physics. We're just taking advantage of their loopholes. She pressed a button on her control pad. The cube began to glow slightly, then seemed to fade away like a photograph left in the sun too long. A moment later, it appeared on another platform on the other side of the lab. Dr. Grant rushed to examine the cube with her instruments. This is impossible, she muttered. The cube, it never moved through the space between these points. It's like it took a shortcut through quantum space. Emma finished for her. A space smaller than atoms, where distance doesn't work quite the same way. The aliens can't detect it because they're looking for things moving through normal space. Captain Walker walked around the cube, his face thoughtful. And you can control where these objects appear. Anywhere we've placed a receiver, Emma confirmed. We've already set up 12 hidden receivers on Mars, and the aliens haven't noticed a thing. Walker's eyes widened. Mars? You've already sent things to Mars? Emma nodded. Small things so far. But we're ready to go bigger. Much bigger. She led them to another part of the lab, where a large chamber stood ready. It was big enough to hold several people. This is what we've really been working on, she explained. A way to move people through quantum space. We've tested it with animals. Dogs, monkeys, even a horse once. They all came through perfectly fine. Have you tested it with humans? Walker asked. Emma shook her head. Not yet. We were about to start human trials when the aliens showed up. But Captain, we're out of time for careful testing. The aliens think they've trapped us here, but they've actually given us the perfect opportunity to prove this technology works. Walker was quiet for a long moment, looking at the quantum chamber. How many people could you move at once? With our current power supply, about 50. But we don't need to move a lot of people at once. We need to move the right people to the right places. She led them to a computer showing a map of nearby star systems. We've identified over 300 planets that could support human life. Planets the aliens don't control or haven't found yet. With this technology, we could start setting up colonies before they even realize what we're doing. Dr. Grant looked amazed. You're not talking about breaking through the blockade. You're talking about going around it completely. Emma nodded. The aliens think 3-dimensionally. Their ships, their barriers, their whole empire is built on controlling normal space. But we found a way to step outside their game board entirely. Captain Walker stared at the quantum chamber, then at the map of potential colony worlds. Finally, he turned to Emma. How soon can you be ready for the first human test? Emma felt her heart beat faster. This was the moment her team had worked towards for 10 years. We can be ready in 24 hours. But Captain, we'll need volunteers. People willing to risk being the first humans to travel through quantum space. Walker stood straighter. You have your first volunteer right here. Emma started to protest, but Walker held up his hand. The aliens want to contain us, to control us, to make us submit to their rules. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. Humans don't just break through walls. we find completely new ways around them. He looked around at the assembled scientists and engineers. Let's show them what humanity can really do. Emma nodded, feeling a mix of fear and excitement. In just 24 hours, they would either make history or prove the aliens right about humanity being too reckless. But as she looked at her team's determined faces, she knew which way it would go. Humans had always been good at doing the impossible. Now they were about to do it again, not with force or violence, but with pure human ingenuity. The aliens had built a cage for humanity, but they were about to learn that humans were very, very good at finding unusual ways out of cages. Colonel Tom Hayes watched the countdown timer on the wall of the underground command center. 1 week had passed since Captain Walker's successful quantum jump to Mars. Now it was time for the real mission to begin. Status report on the seed capsules, he ordered, his voice echoing in the large room filled with computers and busy staff. Mary West, his operations officer, pulled up the information on the main screen. All 2,000 capsules are ready, sir. Each one contains everything needed to start a colony. Construction machines, food processors, medical equipment, and DNA samples from 10,000 volunteer donors. Tom nodded, walking over to examine one of the capsules up close. It looked simple from the outside, just a metal sphere about the size of a car. But inside was everything needed to build a new home for humanity among the stars. And the quantum receivers, he asked. All capsules have been programmed with their target coordinates, Mary replied. Once they arrive, they'll create their own quantum tunnels back to Earth. We'll be able to send people through as soon as the sites are ready. Tom remembered the day they chose the target worlds. 250 planets, carefully selected from secret telescope data. Worlds with the right gravity, the right atmosphere, the right conditions for human life. Worlds far beyond the aliens' control. Show me the alien patrol routes again, he ordered. A new map appeared on the screen. Red dots showed the alien ships moving in their perfect patterns around Earth. They were so confident in their blockade that they had become predictable. They're still watching for ships trying to break out, Mary said with a small smile. They have no idea we're about to slip right past them. The door opened, and Dr. Reed walked in. She looked tired but happy. The final tests are complete, Colonel. The capsules are ready to launch. Tom checked his tablet one last time. Every major government on Earth had signed off on the plan. Operation Seedfall was ready to begin. Send the signal, he ordered. Let's scatter some seeds. Mary's fingers flew over her keyboard. In 20 different locations around the world, hidden quantum chambers powered up. Each one held 100 seed capsules, ready to jump through spaces smaller than atoms to reach distant stars. First wave launching in 10 seconds, Mary announced. The room fell silent as everyone watched the main screen. Green dots showed each launch site, ready to send humanity's future to the stars. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The alien ships continued their patrols. Their energy barrier still shimmered in space. But on the screens, monitors showed the quantum energy spikes as capsule after capsule vanished from Earth. First wave successful, Mary reported, her voice excited. All capsules have reached their targets. No response from the alien fleet. Tom allowed himself a small smile. Begin second wave launch sequence. And so it continued. Wave after wave of seed capsules jumped through quantum space. Each one carried the tools, knowledge, and genetic material needed to start a new human colony. The aliens, watching so carefully for ships trying to break their blockade, had no idea that humanity was slipping through the cracks in reality itself. Hours passed. In space, the alien ships maintained their perfect formation. On their sensors, Earth looked completely contained, but with each passing minute, humanity was spreading further across the galaxy. Sir, Mary called out suddenly, we're getting signals back. The first capsules have activated. New data poured across the screens. On distant worlds, machines were waking up. Construction robots were beginning to build shelters. Food processors were analyzing local plants and animals. Everything was working exactly as planned. "Show me Haven," Tom ordered. Haven was their first target world, the one they'd selected for the first human colonists. The screen changed to show data from Haven's capsule. The construction robots had already cleared land for the first settlement. Environmental readings showed clean air, fresh water, and soil perfect for growing Earth crops. "Haven is ready for colonists," Mary confirmed. "Dr. Michael Ross can make the jump whenever he's ready." Tom nodded. Dr. Ross had volunteered to be the first colonist, to have his consciousness transferred into a new body waiting on Haven. It was a one-way trip. The body he'd leave behind on Earth would be empty. But it meant they could send a human mind through quantum space without risking physical transport of a living person. "Send word to Dr. Ross," Tom ordered. "Tell him Haven is waiting." As his staff sent the message, Tom walked to the window overlooking the capsule storage area. Hundreds more capsules waited for their turn to jump. Each one represented a new chance for humanity, a new world where they could grow and thrive beyond the aliens' reach. His tablet beeped with an incoming message from Captain Walker on Mars. "Quantum receiver network is growing. We're getting strong signals from 30 different worlds already. The seeds are taking root." Tom typed back, "Keep monitoring the alien fleet. They still think they've trapped us here. Let's keep them thinking that for as long as we can." A new alert flashed on the main screen. Dr. Ross was ready to make his jump to Haven. He would be the first human consciousness to travel through quantum space, the first to wake up on a world beyond Earth's solar system. "All stations, prepare for consciousness transfer," Tom announced. "Let's make history." As his staff worked, Tom thought about the aliens in their massive ships above. They thought size meant power. They thought their energy barriers and patrol ships could contain humanity's spirit of exploration. But humans had always found ways to survive and spread, like seeds carried on the wind. Now they were scattering themselves among the stars, not with huge ships and powerful weapons, but with clever machines and brave volunteers willing to try something new. "Consciousness transfer beginning," Mary announced. "Dr. Ross is on his way to Haven." Tom watched the data stream across his screen. Somewhere out there, on a distant world, humanity's first interstellar colonist was about to wake up. And he was just the first. Soon, there would be thousands more, spreading human civilization across the galaxy, while the aliens continued their useless blockade of Earth. "Send the coded message to all Earth governments," Tom ordered. "Operation Seedfall is proceeding as planned. The garden is growing." As his staff sent the message, Tom smiled again. The aliens had tried to put humanity in a box, but they were about to learn what every force in history had learned. You can't contain something that's meant to grow and spread. Humanity wasn't just surviving their blockade. They were using it as a chance to become something even greater. Dr. Michael Ross opened his eyes to see a purple sky. For a moment, he felt confused. The last thing he remembered was lying down in the quantum transfer chamber on Earth. Then his new memories clicked into place, and he smiled. He had made it. He was on Haven. "Body systems check complete," said a friendly computer voice. "All functions normal." Michael sat up slowly, testing his new body. It felt strange but right, like putting on a perfectly fitted suit. The transfer had worked exactly as planned. His mind now lived in a specially created body, ready for life on this alien world. He looked around the small medical pod where he had awakened. Through the clear walls, he could see the work the seed capsule had already done. A small base camp stood ready, built by robots while his body was being prepared. The purple sky above was bright and clear, with Haven's 2 small moons visible even in daylight. "Status report," he said, his new voice sounding exactly like his old one. "Base camp is fully operational," the computer replied. "Current temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. Air composition is within human normal range. No dangerous organisms detected in the area. Construction robots have completed basic shelter and are ready for further instructions." Michael stood up carefully and walked to the pod's door. It opened with a soft hiss, letting in his first breath of Haven's air. It smelled different from Earth, a bit like mint and ocean spray mixed together. He took a deep breath, becoming the first human to breathe the air of a planet beyond Earth's solar system. "Send message to Earth Control," he said. "The first sprout has taken root." The quantum communicator beeped as it sent his message through the tiny tunnel in space back to Earth. A few seconds later, Colonel Hayes' voice came through, clear as if he were standing nearby. "Glad to hear your voice, Doctor. How does Haven look?" Michael walked around the base camp, taking in every detail. "It's beautiful, Colonel. The capsule chose the landing site well. We're in a valley with mountains to the north, and what looks like good farmland to the south. The robots have built enough basic shelters for the first 100 colonists." "Excellent," Hayes replied. "We're preparing to send the first group of colonists now. 20 families, all volunteers who understand this is a one-way trip. They should arrive within 48 hours. Michael nodded, though Hayes couldn't see him. 2 days. In 2 days, Haven would go from having 1 human to having almost 100, and this was just the beginning. He spent those 2 days working with the construction robots, getting everything ready. They built more houses, set up the first farm plots, and tested all the equipment. The robots worked tirelessly, their movements directed by both Michael's orders and their own programming. He also explored the area around the base camp. Haven was like Earth in many ways. It had trees, though their leaves were more blue than green, grass, which sparkled slightly in sunlight, and animals, including something that looked like a cross between a deer and a bird. Everything was familiar enough to feel comfortable, but different enough to remind him he was making history with every step. On the morning of the second day, the quantum receiver hummed to life. Michael stood ready as the first family appeared in the transfer chamber, a mother, father, and 2 children, all in bodies specially prepared for life on Haven. "Welcome to your new home," he said as they stepped out, their eyes wide with wonder at the purple sky and sparkling grass. More families followed. Each transfer was perfect, each new colonist arriving safely. Children ran around exploring their new world, while parents helped set up their new homes. By sunset, Haven had its first real colony of humans. That night, they held a small celebration. As Haven's 2 moons rose in the purple sky, the colonists gathered around outdoor tables, sharing their first meal on their new world. Michael looked at their happy faces and felt proud. This was what humanity did best: adapt, survive, and build new homes wherever they went. His quantum communicator beeped with an urgent message from Earth. It was Colonel Hayes again, but this time he sounded excited. "Dr. Ross, are you there?" "I'm here, Colonel. What's happening?" "The other seeds are sprouting," Hayes said. "We're getting signals from 50 different worlds now. The quantum network is growing faster than we expected. Colonies are being set up on every world we sent capsules to." Michael smiled. "How many people have made the transfer so far?" "Over 1,000, Hayes replied, "and more volunteers signing up every day. The aliens still haven't noticed anything. Their ships are still just sitting there, watching Earth's atmosphere for any sign of ships trying to break through." One of the children ran past Michael, chasing what looked like a glowing butterfly. The sight made him laugh. "They're looking in the wrong direction, Colonel. While they watch the sky, we're spreading through quantum space." "Exactly," Hayes said. "And we just got word from the Mars base. They've finished building their own quantum transmitter. We can now send people directly from Mars to any colony world. The network is growing." Michael looked up at the stars appearing in Haven's darkening sky. Somewhere out there, 49 other colonies were starting just like this one. 49 new homes for humanity, all growing stronger every day. "The aliens wanted to contain us," he said. "Instead, they forced us to find a better way to reach the stars." "That's not the best part," Hayes added. "Wait until you hear what the science team just discovered about quantum space. It turns out we're just scratching the surface of what this technology can do." Michael was about to ask what he meant when one of the colonists called him over. They had found something interesting. Plants that seemed to glow in the dark, creating beautiful patterns in the evening shadows. "I have to go, Colonel," he said. "New discoveries to make. But keep me updated on Earth's status." "Will do, Doctor. Earth control out." As Michael walked over to examine the glowing plants, he thought about the aliens in their huge ships. They thought they were so advanced with their energy barriers and massive fleets. But they had never considered that humans might find a completely different path to the stars. Now, humanity was spreading across the galaxy like seeds in the wind, taking root on new worlds far beyond the aliens' reach. And they were doing it not with force or violence, but with cleverness and determination. The first stars began to shine in Haven's purple sky. Somewhere up there, other human colonies were growing. Other families were building new homes. The aliens' blockade hadn't trapped humanity. It had only pushed them to become something even greater. Hashtag the Galactic Fleet blocked Earth's borders, but humans had other plans. Hashtag Part 5. The Revelation. 2 years had passed since the alien blockade of Earth began. Ambassador Robert Stone stood in the meeting room of the Galactic Council's flagship, looking out at Earth through the massive window. The alien ships still hung in space around the planet, their energy barrier still glowing strong. "You have requested this meeting," the alien council leader said. Like all council members, it was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to shimmer. "Are you finally ready to submit to council authority?" Robert smiled. He had practiced this moment many times. "Actually, I'm here to discuss the terms of your surrender." The council chamber erupted in strange alien laughter. The council leader's silver skin rippled with amusement. "Surrender? Your planet has been contained for 2 Earth years. You have no ships, no way to leave your world. What could possibly make you think we would surrender?" "Take a look at this," Robert said, placing a small device on the meeting table. It projected a series of images into the air. The first showed Haven, with its purple sky and thriving human colony. The next showed another world with red grass and 3 suns, where humans had built cities into mountain caves. Image after image appeared, showing human colonies on different worlds. The alien laughter stopped. The council leader's skin turned a darker shade of silver, a sign of concern. "These are tricks. Images created to fool us." "They're real," Robert said calmly. "Would you like to speak to some of our colonists?" He pressed a button on his device. Suddenly, holograms appeared around the room. Human colonists from different worlds, all speaking at once about their new homes. Dr. Ross from Haven, families from other colonies, children who had been born on worlds beyond Earth. "Impossible," one council member said. "Our barrier is perfect. No ship could have escaped." "Who said anything about ships?" Robert asked. He placed another device on the table, this one barely larger than his thumb. "This is a quantum tunnel generator. While you were watching for ships trying to break through your barrier, we found a way to step around it completely. We've been colonizing new worlds for 2 years, right under your sensors." The council leader's skin had turned almost black now. "How many worlds?" 250 at last count," Robert replied. "All self-sustaining colonies, all connected by quantum tunnels that your sensors can't detect. And we're finding more suitable worlds every day." He let that sink in before continuing. "But here's what should really worry you. We've gotten very good at quantum space travel. Good enough that we could appear inside any ship in your fleet, anytime we want. We don't, because we're not interested in fighting. We just want to explore and grow." The council chamber was silent. The aliens looked at each other, their skin colors shifting rapidly as they communicated in their own way. Finally, the council leader spoke. "If what you say is true, humans are far more dangerous than we thought." Robert shook his head. "No, we're far more creative than you thought. You saw our ships and weapons, and thought you knew what we were capable of. But humans have always been best at finding new ways to solve problems. He walked around the table, looking each council member in the eye. Your blockade didn't contain us. It challenged us. It made us think differently about space travel. And now we can go anywhere in the galaxy without massive ships or fleets. What do you want? The council leader asked. 3 things, Robert said. First, end the blockade. It's pointless now anyway. Second, recognize humanity's right to explore and colonize unclaimed worlds. We'll stay away from your territory, but the rest of the galaxy is open to everyone. And the third thing. Robert smiled again. Share what we've learned. Quantum tunneling could help all species travel more easily, without the need for huge ships or the risk of space battles. We're willing to share the technology, under the right conditions. The council members' skin colors shifted rapidly as they discussed among themselves. Robert waited patiently. He knew what their answer would be. They had no choice. Humanity was already spread too far to be contained now. Finally, the council leader's skin returned to its normal silver color. Your terms are acceptable. The blockade will end. But know this, we will be watching your colonies carefully. Watch all you want, Robert said. You'll see the same thing on every world. Humans doing what we do best. Building, growing, learning, and finding new ways forward. He gathered his devices from the table. I'll have our technical team send you the basic principles of quantum tunneling. I think you'll be impressed by how simple it really is. We just had to learn to think differently about space itself. As he turned to leave, the council leader spoke one more time. We tried to contain you because we feared how quickly humans were advancing. But it seems we only made you advance faster. Robert paused at the door. That's the thing about humans. We're at our best when we face our biggest challenges. Your blockade didn't trap us. It just gave us a reason to reach further than we ever had before. An hour later, Robert stood at the window of his shuttle, watching the alien ships power down their energy barrier for the first time in 2 years. Earth was free again. But humanity had already moved beyond needing that freedom. His quantum communicator beeped. A message from Dr. Ross on Haven. Just heard the news. The children want to know if they can visit Earth now. Robert smiled as he typed back. Soon. But I have a feeling Earth's children will be more interested in visiting Haven and all the other new worlds we found. As his shuttle headed back to Earth, Robert thought about how the aliens' plan had backfired. They had tried to put humanity in a cage, not realizing that humans were experts at finding unexpected ways out of cages. Now humanity was spreading across the galaxy, not through force or power, but through clever thinking and determination. The aliens' blockade had become just another chapter in human history, a challenge that pushed them to become something greater than they had been before. And as Robert looked out at the stars, he knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had found a new path to the stars, and they were never going to stop exploring it.
The forest was Samuel Harper's sanctuary, his escape from the noise of life. The city wasn't far, but the winding trails, towering oaks, and moss-covered rocks made this patch of wilderness feel like another world. He came here to walk, think, and, on particularly restless days, imagine he was a rogue adventurer navigating alien landscapes. That night, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long golden beams through the trees, Samuel was lost in thought, mentally rewriting his latest argument with his boss. "Optimize the synergy metrics," he muttered, mimicking the manager's nasal tone. "Who says stuff like that?" It's like corporate jargon threw up on itself. He kicked a pine cone off the path, sending it skittering into the undergrowth. A sharp flicker of light caught his eye. At first, he dismissed it as the sun glinting off a puddle, but then it blinked again, steady and deliberate, as though someone were signaling him. Samuel stopped, narrowing his eyes. Okay, probably just a flashlight, or a really ambitious firefly. Still, curiosity tugged at him. Turning off the beaten trail, he pushed through the underbrush, the damp leaves brushing against his jeans. The flickering grew brighter, taking on an eerie, iridescent quality that didn't belong to any flashlight he'd ever seen. The air around him grew colder, sharper, as though he'd stepped into a different atmosphere entirely. He hesitated, feeling the hairs on the back of his neck rise. "This is it," he said aloud, trying to inject humor into his growing unease. "This is how it starts. Guy follows creepy light into the woods. Next thing you know, boom, probing, should have stayed on the path." The light resolved into a steady glow, illuminating a small clearing ahead. As he stepped into it, Samuel froze. She stood in the center of the clearing, bathed in the light of an object she held, a crystalline device that shimmered with shifting hues. The woman, if you could call her that, was tall, graceful, and utterly otherworldly. Her skin was a deep, luminous blue, like twilight captured in flesh. Silver hair cascaded over her shoulders, catching the strange light and refracting it into a halo. Her eyes, large and iridescent, locked onto his with a mixture of surprise and calculation. Samuel blinked. Hi?" The woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Greetings," she said, her voice a melodic hum that didn't quite match the movement of her lips. Samuel raised a hand in a half-wave, half-surrender gesture. "So not to be rude, but what are you doing here? And also, what are you—" The woman glanced at the crystalline device in her hands, which emitted a series of soft beeps. "I am conducting research," she said, her voice careful as though she were selecting each word from a list. "Research? In the middle of a forest? At night?" Samuel gestured around them. "Look, if you're here for the fungi or something, I can save you some time. We've got moss, we've got mushrooms, and we've got, well, whatever that is." He pointed at her glowing device. "But I'm guessing it's not exactly on the park ranger's inventory list." The woman's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Amusement, maybe? Or irritation. "I am looking for something specific," she said. "It is critical to my mission." "Mission, huh?" Samuel crossed his arms, trying to process the surreal scene. "You're not exactly blending in, you know. You should have gone for a park ranger outfit or, I don't know, at least ditched the glowing gizmo." Her gaze sharpened. "You should leave." "Whoa, okay," Samuel said, raising his hands again. "No need to be hostile. I'm just the nosy guy who stumbled into whatever this is." Before she could respond, the device in her hands emitted a sharp, urgent tone. Her entire demeanor changed. Her posture stiffened, and her head snapped toward the trees, scanning the shadows. "What's that mean?" Samuel asked, already regretting the question. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "It means we are no longer alone." Samuel felt the bottom drop out of his stomach. Define not alone. Like, is this a raccoon in the bushes kind of thing, or a— He trailed off as a low, mechanical hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. She grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "We must move. Now." "Wait, move? Move where?" Samuel stammered, as she yanked him into the forest. The hum grew into a droning roar, accompanied by faint flashes of light above the trees. Samuel glanced up, catching glimpses of sleek black shapes darting through the sky. They moved too fast and too smoothly to be helicopters. Okay, he panted as they ran. "So, those are your friends, I'm guessing?" "They are not my allies," she replied curtly. "Got it. Enemies, then. Space mafia, alien tax collectors, intergalactic paparazzi." She didn't answer, but the flicker of irritation on her face told him his humor wasn't appreciated. They burst through another patch of underbrush, and Samuel nearly tripped over a gnarled root. The woman glanced back at him, clearly annoyed by his clumsiness. "You are inefficient at fleeing," she said flatly. "Well, sorry, Miss Graceful Gazelle. I don't exactly have your fancy alien cardio routine." Despite the gravity of the situation, she almost smiled, a fleeting expression quickly replaced by her usual seriousness. They reached a small hollow, where she motioned for him to duck behind a cluster of rocks. The droning hum passed overhead, the black shape searching for something, or someone. Samuel pressed his back against the rocks, trying to catch his breath. "So," he said between gasps, "what's the deal? Are you some kind of alien treasure hunter? Did you lose your cosmic car keys or something?" She hesitated, then looked at him with an intensity that made his usual snark dry up. "I am Tekel," she said, "a xenoarchivist from Velar 7. I came to this world to recover something of great importance. But the Vervins, the ones pursuing us, wish to take it for themselves. If they succeed—" She trailed off, her expression dark. Samuel swallowed hard. "Right. So, just to recap, I'm now on the run with an alien librarian, being hunted by space mercenaries. This is definitely not how I thought my evening was going to go." Tekel raised an eyebrow. "Your levity is unusual." "Hey, humor's how I cope," Samuel said with a shrug. "Besides, if I'm going to die in a forest tonight, I'd rather go out cracking jokes than crying in a ditch." Tekel studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "Perhaps your levity will be of use after all." "Great," Samuel muttered. "Happy to be Earth's first stand-up comedian/alien sidekick. What's the plan, Tekel?" The hum began to grow louder again, and she gripped her device tightly. "We run." Samuel Harper had lived his life by a strict, unspoken rule: avoid unnecessary chaos. Yet here he was, tripping over roots and gasping for air, trailing behind a blue-skinned alien woman who, by the looks of it, wasn't even breaking a sweat. Tekel moved through the forest with an effortless grace, dodging branches and vaulting over fallen logs as though she had been navigating Earth's terrain for years. Samuel, on the other hand, was wheezing like an asthmatic pack mule. "Could you maybe slow down a little?" he managed between gasps. "Not all of us have a genetically superior alien legs or whatever." Tekel glanced over her shoulder, her iridescent eyes briefly scanning him with what might have been concern or mild disgust. "Your physical stamina is disappointing." Samuel threw up his hands. "Yeah, well, not all of us grew up on Planet Supermodel." He stumbled over another root, but caught himself, feeling his cheeks flush. "Some of us work desk jobs. Sitting indoors, with coffee and snacks, lots of snacks." Her lips twitched almost imperceptibly. "Your diet is inefficient." "Yeah, well," he said, pointing at her as they jogged. "It's also delicious. Don't knock it till you try a bacon cheeseburger." The banter, though absurd, eased some of the tension coiling in his chest, and judging by the faintest flicker of amusement on her face, it seemed to do the same for her. As they continued through the forest, the eerie hum of the Vervan's crafts began to fade, replaced by the familiar sounds of rustling leaves and chirping crickets. Tekel slowed to a brisk walk, her sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. "Are we safe now?" Samuel asked, doubling over to catch his breath. "For the moment," Tekel replied, tilting her head as though listening for something. "But they will not stop searching." "Great," Samuel muttered, "because running for my life once wasn't enough cardio for one night." Tekel ignored him, raising the crystalline device she carried. It emitted a soft hum, its surface shifting with glowing symbols that looked like a cross between mathematical equations and constellations. Samuel couldn't help but stare. "So what's that thing, anyway? Your space GPS? Alien Fitbit?" Tekel glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "It is a multi-dimensional locator and resonance scanner." Samuel blinked. Cool. And what does that mean in regular people terms?" "It helps me find what I seek," she said simply, turning her attention back to the device. "Right," Samuel said, crossing his arms. "And what exactly are you seeking? You've been a little vague on the whole mission-critical thing." Tekel hesitated, her eyes narrowing as though she were debating how much to reveal. Finally, she said, "There is an artifact hidden on this planet, a key to technology older than my species, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. It must not fall into the wrong hands. Samuel frowned. And by wrong hands, you mean the space jerks flying around in the murder drones? The Vervins, Tikel said, her voice laced with disdain. Mercenaries. They destroy what they cannot steal. Great, Samuel muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. So you're saying Earth is about to become the galaxy's hottest war zone. Fantastic. Tikel's gaze softened slightly. If I succeed, there will be no war. The artifact will be secured. Samuel raised an eyebrow. And if you fail? She didn't answer, but the grim set of her jaw was all the answer he needed. Here they came upon an abandoned cabin nestled in a small clearing. The roof sagged under years of neglect, and the windows were dark and broken, but it would serve as temporary shelter. Quaint, Samuel said as they stepped inside, brushing cobwebs from his face. I always wanted to star in my own haunted house movie. Tikel ignored him, moving to the far corner of the room and setting her device on a rickety table. It began to emit a low rhythmic pulse, casting shifting patterns of light across the walls. Samuel watched her work, his curiosity getting the better of him. So, let me get this straight, he said, leaning against the door frame. You're an alien librarian or archivist or whatever, sent to Earth to find this ancient artifact, but now you're stuck playing hide-and-seek with some intergalactic bounty hunters. Tikel didn't look up. Your summary is simplistic. Well, I'm a simple guy, Samuel said with a shrug. But here's the part I don't get. Why come to Earth at all? I mean, if this artifact is so dangerous, why not just, I don't know, nuke it from orbit? Tikel turned to him, her expression serious. Because knowledge is not meant to be destroyed. It is meant to be preserved and protected. Samuel opened his mouth to argue but closed it again. There was something in her tone, something resolute and deeply personal, that made him rethink his usual snark. Instead, he gestured at the device. So, what's it doing now? It is calibrating, she said, turning back to the pulsing light. The artifact emits a unique resonance signature. This will help us locate it. Samuel nodded, though he didn't entirely understand. And what happens if the Vervins get to it first? They will not, Tikel said firmly. Right. Optimistic. I like that. He glanced around the cabin, his eyes landing on a dusty shelf filled with rusty cans. Well, since we're stuck here for a bit, I'll see if there's anything edible. I'm guessing you didn't pack snacks. Your food is incompatible with my physiology, Tikel said without looking at him. Yeah, well, your attitude is incompatible with my ego, but here we are. To his surprise, that earned him a faint, almost imperceptible smile. As the minutes ticked by, Samuel rummaged through the cabin, finding little of use. The silence was heavy, broken only by the occasional hum of Tikel's device. So, he said, sitting down across from her, do you do this kind of thing often? You know, travel to random planets, dodge assassins, save the galaxy? Tikel tilted her head. It is not uncommon. Right, Samuel said. And here I thought my job was stressful. She raised an eyebrow. You said you analyze data. How is that stressful? Have you ever tried explaining analytics to a boss who thinks Excel is a programming language? Samuel asked. Trust me, it's a war zone. To his surprise, Tikel let out a soft chuckle, a sound so unexpected that it momentarily stunned him. You are peculiar, she said, almost to herself. Thanks, Samuel said with a grin. I like to think of myself as charmingly peculiar. Before she could respond, the rhythmic hum of her device grew louder, sharper. Tikel's expression shifted instantly, her body tense. They've found us, she said. Samuel groaned. Of course they have, because nothing says relaxing evening in the woods like homicidal space mercenaries. Tikel grabbed the device and moved toward the door. We must leave. Now. Samuel sighed, rising to his feet. You know, I was really looking forward to a quiet night. Maybe some pizza, catch up on my shows. But no, instead, I'm out here playing tag with aliens. Your complaints are noted, Tikel said dryly, stepping outside. Glad to know someone's keeping track, Samuel muttered, following her into the night. Samuel wasn't sure when his life had taken such a bizarre turn. One moment, he was debating whether to order pizza or Chinese takeout. The next, he was sprinting through the woods with a blue-skinned alien holding what looked like a glowing sci-fi Rubik's Cube. Behind them, the Vervin's drone-like crafts skimmed the treetops, their searchlights cutting through the dark like blades. The low, menacing hum of their engines made the air thrum with tension. "This is ridiculous," Samuel muttered, ducking under a branch. "I'm an office guy. I do spreadsheets, not intergalactic parkour." Tikel, several paces ahead, glanced back at him. "You seem determined to narrate your shortcomings aloud." "That's because I'm processing," Samuel retorted. "And because this is insane. Why do they even want this thing so bad? What is it? A cosmic iPhone? Galactic blender?" "It is neither of those things," Tikel said curtly, not slowing her pace. "Great. Thanks for clearing that up," Samuel said, struggling to keep up. "Really puts my mind at ease." A sudden crackling sound erupted behind them, followed by a burst of light that lit up the forest like a strobe. Samuel stumbled, barely managing to keep from face-planting into the dirt. Not to alarm you," he said, pointing at the glowing streak of fire where a tree used to be, "but they've upgraded to shooting now." Tikel didn't respond, but her grip on the crystalline device tightened. She glanced at the sky, her expression grim. "They will not stop until they capture or eliminate us. We must reach higher ground." "Perfect," Samuel said. "Let's make it harder for them to miss." Tikel shot him a withering look. "Your sarcasm is noted. Again." They came to a steep incline, the earth slick with moss and loose soil. Tikel ascended with the precision of someone who had trained for this kind of thing, or perhaps someone who was just naturally good at defying gravity. Samuel, on the other hand, clawed at the dirt and rocks like a very out-of-shape squirrel. "Just give me a second," he wheezed, collapsing on his hands and knees when he finally reached the top. Tikel stood over him, unamused. "Your physical inefficiency continues to astound me." Samuel waved a hand weakly. "Listen, unless you've got an alien Fitbit lying around, this is as good as it gets." Before Tikel could reply, the hum of the Vervin crafts grew louder. She turned sharply, scanning the horizon. Samuel followed her gaze and spotted two dark shapes weaving through the trees below, their searchlights sweeping across the forest floor. "Okay, I know I said I wanted more excitement in my life," Samuel said, standing shakily, "but this isn't what I had in mind." Tikel ignored him, raising her device. It emitted a series of rapid beeps, and Samuel noticed the patterns of light on its surface shifting. What's it doing now?" he asked. "Calculating an escape route," Tikel replied. "Well, it better calculate faster because I'm pretty sure those guys don't want to stop for tea and cookies." The device let out a final chime, and Tikel's expression brightened, if only slightly. "This way," she said, motioning toward a narrow trail that disappeared into a dense thicket of trees. Samuel hesitated. "Okay. Not to question the alien GPS, but that looks like it leads straight into a horror movie." "Do you have a better suggestion?" Tikel asked, already moving. Samuel sighed. "Nope. Horror trail it is." The trail was barely more than a deer path, winding through tangled underbrush that clawed at Samuel's legs. The trees grew closer together here, their branches forming a canopy so thick it blocked out what little moonlight there was. "So," Samuel said, trying to distract himself from the creeping sense of doom, "how long have you been doing this alien archivist thing? Like, is it a family business, or did you just wake up one day and think, hey, I'd love to risk my life for space history?" Tikel didn't look back. "My work is a calling. It requires dedication, precision, and a willingness to face danger." "Right," Samuel said. "Sounds like the exact opposite of my job. unless you count the time someone microwaved fish in the break room. To his surprise, Tikel's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. Your ability to find humor in adversity is curious. Yeah, well, Samuel said, brushing a spiderweb off his face. If I didn't laugh, I'd cry. And trust me, nobody wants to see that. The device in Tikel's hand emitted another series of beeps, drawing her attention. She slowed, holding it up. What now? Samuel asked. The artifact's resonance is stronger here, Tikel said, her eyes scanning the trees. We are close. Samuel frowned. Close to what? Because all I see is... A low growl cut him off. He froze, his heart lurching in his chest. The growl came again, deeper and more guttural, echoing through the trees. Please tell me that's just a really angry raccoon, Samuel whispered. Tikel's expression darkened. It is not. From the shadows emerged a creature that defied every rule of Earth biology. It was vaguely quadrupedal, but its limbs bent at unnatural angles, and its skin shimmered with a chameleon-like iridescence. Its eyes, too many of them, glowed with a cold, predatory light. Okay, Samuel said, backing up slowly. That's definitely not a raccoon. The creature snarled, baring rows of needle-like teeth. Do you have a plan for this? Samuel asked, his voice pitching higher. Tikel raised her device, which began to emit a high-pitched whine. The creature flinched, its glowing eyes narrowing. Stay behind me, Tikel said, her voice steady. Gladly, Samuel muttered, taking another step back. Not really looking to be alien dog food tonight. The creature lunged, its movements too fast for something its size. Tikel sidestepped gracefully, thrusting her device forward. A burst of light erupted from its surface, striking the creature mid-air. It howled, its form flickering like a glitching hologram before it vanished into thin air. Samuel stared at the empty space where the creature had been. Okay, what just happened? Did you vaporize it? Teleport it? Or did I hallucinate the whole thing? It was a projection, Tikel said, lowering the device. A diversion created by the Vervins to slow us down. Samuel groaned. Great. Space mercenaries with holographic attack dogs. That's just fantastic. Tikel didn't respond, already moving deeper into the forest. Hey, wait up, Samuel called, jogging to catch up. Just so you know, if I survive this, I'm writing a very angry Yelp review for Earth. Tikel glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Perhaps your humor will prove to be our greatest weapon after all. Yeah, Samuel said, rolling his eyes. Either that, or it'll get me killed. The forest grew quieter as they pressed on, the tension lingering in the air like static. Somewhere ahead, the artifact, and whatever danger it carried, was waiting. The forest canopy finally thinned, giving way to a narrow ridge that overlooked a shallow valley. Samuel leaned against a tree, panting like an overworked bellows, while Tikel stood poised and alert, her iridescent eyes scanning the terrain below. You're kidding me, Samuel groaned, clutching his side. We're not even close to being done, are we? Tikel ignored his theatrics, gesturing toward the valley. The artifact is near. Its resonance is strongest here. Samuel squinted into the darkness. All I see are more trees and what looks like... Is that a swamp? Of course it's a swamp. Why wouldn't it be? The environment is irrelevant, Tikel said, adjusting the crystalline device in her hands. Its surface shimmered with an intricate web of lights. Maybe to you, Samuel muttered, but to me that looks like a recipe for leeches, mud and emotional trauma. Tikel glanced at him, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at her lips. If your survival depends on the avoidance of discomfort, you may be doomed. Gee, thanks for the pep talk, Samuel said, rolling his eyes. Remind me to nominate you for Motivational Speaker of the Year. The descent into the valley was, predictably, a disaster for Samuel. Tikel moved with the precision of a jungle cat, slipping through the underbrush without so much as a snapped twig. Samuel, meanwhile, managed to trip over every root. snag his jacket on every thorn, and step into every muddy patch within a 5-foot radius. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" he grumbled as he yanked his foot free from a particularly sticky puddle. Tikel paused, her expression neutral. "I fail to see the appeal of physical ineptitude." "Wow," Samuel said, shaking mud off his shoe. "Your species must be a hit at parties." As they pushed further into the valley, the air grew thick with the earthy scent of moss and decay. Strange bioluminescent fungi dotted the trees, their faint blue-green glow casting eerie shadows. "So," Samuel said, trying to distract himself from the ominous atmosphere, "are we expecting more holographic death traps, or was that a one-time thing?" "The Vervins rarely rely on the same tactic twice," Tikel replied. "Fantastic," Samuel muttered, "because I was really hoping for a completely new way to almost die." Ahead of them, the ground sloped downward into the swamp Samuel had dreaded. The water was dark and still, its surface broken only by the occasional ripple from unseen creatures below. Tikel paused at the edge, her gaze fixed on something in the distance. "There," she said, pointing toward a cluster of ancient vine-covered stones jutting out of the water. "The artifact is within that structure." Samuel followed her gaze, frowning. "Great. All we have to do is cross a swamp filled with who knows what, break into some creepy ruins, and hope we don't get vaporized by alien booby traps. Easy peasy." Tikel didn't reply, already stepping onto a mossy log that extended into the swamp. "Right," Samuel said, hesitating. "Because balance beams over murky deathwater are totally my thing." The log creaked ominously as he stepped onto it, arms flailing for balance. "Careful," Tikel said without looking back. "Oh, thanks for the tip," Samuel muttered through gritted teeth. They made their way across the swamp, hopping from log to log, and occasionally wading through knee-deep water that smelled like every bad decision Samuel had ever made. "Why do ruins like this always have to be in the middle of nowhere?" Samuel asked, as they reached a large, partially submerged stone platform. "Seclusion ensures preservation," Tikel said, running her fingers over the carvings on one of the stones. Samuel squatted beside her, squinting at the alien symbols etched into the surface. "Let me guess, it says, 'Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.'" Tikel glanced at him, her expression inscrutable. "It is a warning, but not one your humor requires." "Of course it's a warning," Samuel said, straightening up. "Because why make things easy when you can make them horrifying?" The platform's center housed an ancient, rectangular opening that led downward into darkness. A faint, pulsating glow emanated from below, casting an eerie light on the surrounding stones. "Please tell me that's not where we're going," Samuel said, already knowing the answer. Tikel didn't respond, already descending the uneven stone steps. Samuel sighed. "You know, I used to complain about Mondays. I feel like an idiot now." The chamber below was vast and cold, its walls lined with crystalline formations that refracted light in shimmering patterns. The air hummed with energy, making Samuel's skin tingle. Tikel moved purposefully toward the center of the room, where a pedestal stood surrounded by intricate alien machinery. On the pedestal rested a small, multifaceted object that seemed to shift and shimmer as though it were alive. "That's it?" Samuel asked, eyeing the artifact. "Looks like a really fancy paperweight." "It is far more than that," Tikel said, her voice reverent. She approached the pedestal cautiously, her device emitting a steady pulse. Samuel stayed back, hands on his hips. "So, what happens if you just grab it? Alarms? Explosions? A portal to another dimension?" Tikel ignored him, focusing on the artifact. As she reached for it, the room suddenly trembled. The crystalline walls glowed brighter, and a deep, resonant tone filled the chamber. "Called it," Samuel muttered. Tikel snatched the artifact, and the machinery surrounding the pedestal roared to life. Panels slid open along the walls, revealing an array of glowing orbs that floated ominously in the air. "Okay," Samuel said, backing toward the stairs. "This feels like the part where we run, Tikel's device emitted a series of rapid beeps, and she turned sharply. "Go!" Samuel didn't need to be told twice. He bolted up the stairs, his heart pounding. Behind him, he could hear the hum of energy building to a crescendo. Tikel was right behind him, the artifact clutched tightly in her hands. The moment they reached the surface, a deafening explosion shook the ground, and a column of light erupted from the ruins, shooting into the night sky. Samuel stared, wide-eyed. "So, that's probably not good, right?" Tikel glanced at the light, her expression grim. "The Vervins will know we have the artifact." "Fantastic," Samuel said, throwing up his hands. "Because this wasn't stressful enough already." Tikel's gaze softened, just slightly. "Your humor is admirable." "Admirable?" Samuel repeated. "Lady, if we survive this, I'm putting that on my tombstone." The distant hum of the Vervin crafts grew louder, drawing their attention. "We must move," Tikel said, gripping the artifact tightly. Samuel sighed. "Right, because running for our lives is just what I needed to round out my day." And with that, they disappeared into the forest, the artifact's glow casting long shadows on the path ahead. The forest felt alive with the buzz of impending chaos. Above the treetops, the hum of Vervin crafts grew louder, the sound vibrating through the cool night air like an ominous drumbeat. Samuel ran alongside Tikel, his lungs burning and his legs threatening rebellion with every step. "Just so you know," he wheezed, dodging a low branch, "this is officially the most cardio I've done since high school." Tikel, as composed as ever, didn't break stride. "Your species' physical limitations are troubling." "Yeah, well," Samuel snapped, hopping over a fallen log. "Not all of us had alien boot camp growing up." Tikel shot him a glance that might have been amused, or maybe that was just his imagination. The alien woman rarely let her emotions slip, though Samuel had learned to catch the subtle shifts in her expression. "Besides," he continued, "we humans have evolved to outrun danger by being clever, not fast." "Then I suggest you prove it," Tikel replied, holding up her device as its crystalline surface emitted a rapid series of beeps. Samuel eyed the glowing screen warily. "Please tell me that's not saying what I think it's saying." Tikel pointed toward a rocky ridge ahead. "There is an energy signature nearby. It may be a suitable location to establish a defense." Samuel squinted at the jagged terrain. "Sure, let's run toward the place that screams bad idea. What could possibly go wrong?" That the ridge, as it turned out, was home to what Samuel could only describe as an alien Stonehenge. Towering monoliths jutted out of the earth in a roughly circular formation, their surfaces covered in glowing runes that seemed to pulse faintly with energy. "Okay," Samuel said, catching his breath as they entered the circle. "On a scale of 1 to Indiana Jones' death trap, where are we here?" Tikel ignored his sarcasm, moving to the center of the circle. She knelt beside one of the monoliths, her device flashing in rapid sequences as she pressed its surface against the stone. Samuel wandered closer, peering at the alien symbols. "Let me guess. Ancient alien tech that's either going to save us or kill us, depending on your translation skills." Tikel didn't look up. "This structure is a residual energy nexus. With proper calibration, it can generate a defensive field." Samuel's brow furrowed. "And by defensive field, you mean—" "A barrier that will repel the Vervin's crafts," Tikel explained, her fingers dancing across the device. "Great," Samuel said, rubbing the back of his neck. "And how long does that take?" Tikel glanced at him. "Longer than we may have." Samuel sighed. "Of course. Why did I even ask?" The hum of the Vervin crafts grew louder, punctuated by sharp bursts of light as their search beams pierced the darkness. "Fantastic," Samuel muttered, pacing nervously. "Any chance they'll just, I don't know, give up and go home?" "Unlikely," Tikel replied, focused on the glowing device. Samuel threw his hands up. "Figures. Intergalactic bad guys don't even have a union break." Tikel paused, her expression softening slightly. Your humor is misplaced, but not unwelcome. Samuel raised an eyebrow. Wow, was that a compliment? From you? Must be a full moon or something. Before Tikel could reply, a sharp, mechanical whine filled the air. Samuel turned to see a sleek, insect-like drone descending into the circle, its metallic body gleaming under the pale moonlight. Oh, great, he said, backing up. They sent the welcoming committee. The drone emitted a high-pitched chirp, its many lenses swiveling to focus on Tikel and the artifact she held. Let me guess, Samuel said, raising his hands. That's not here to negotiate, is it? The drone responded by firing a thin, laser-like beam that scorched the ground inches from his feet. Yep, definitely not negotiating, he shouted, diving behind one of the monoliths. Tikel moved with precision, activating her device. A pulse of energy shot out, striking the drone and sending it spiraling out of control. It crashed into the ground, its metallic body sparking and twitching. Nice shot, Samuel said, peeking out from behind the stone. But I'm guessing there's more where that came from. Tikel didn't reply, her focus returning to the monolith. Of course, Samuel muttered, glancing nervously at the sky. Because why make my life easier? Moments later, the first Vervan craft appeared, its sleek triangular shape hovering ominously above the ridge. Its underside glowed with a sickly green light, casting an eerie glow over the stone circle. Tikel, Samuel called, inching closer to her. Now would be a great time for that defensive field. Tikel's fingers flew across the device. It is not yet fully charged. Samuel groaned. Of course it's not. The craft released a barrage of energy blasts, each one striking the edge of the circle with a deafening boom. Samuel threw himself to the ground, covering his head. This is insane, he shouted over the noise. Why do they even want this thing so bad? Tikel's voice was calm, even in the chaos. The artifact contains knowledge that could alter the balance of power in the galaxy. The Vervan seek to control it. Samuel sat up, brushing dirt off his face. Okay, but here's a crazy thought. What if we just give it to them? Tikel turned to him sharply. Surrendering is not an option. Samuel sighed. Yeah, figured you'd say that. The defensive field finally activated with a loud hum, enveloping the stone circle in a shimmering, translucent barrier. The next barrage of energy blasts struck the field and dissipated harmlessly. Hey, it worked, Samuel said, standing up. We're not dead. I'm calling that a win. The Vervan craft hovered for a moment before retreating slightly, its green lights dimming. Is it just me? Samuel said, squinting at the sky. Or does that feel like the part where the villain says, I'll be back? Tikel's expression was grim. They will regroup and return with greater force. Samuel sighed, running a hand through his hair. Of course they will, because nothing in my life can ever just be simple. Tikel placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression surprisingly gentle. You have proven resourceful, Samuel. Your contributions are not insignificant. Samuel blinked, caught off guard. Wow, high praise from you. Guess I'm not totally useless after all. She almost smiled. Do not let it go to your head. Samuel chuckled, the tension easing for a moment. Too late. As the two of them stood in the glow of the protective barrier, the night felt oddly still. But Samuel knew the reprieve wouldn't last. Somewhere out there, the Vervans were preparing for their next move. Well, he said, stuffing his hands into his pockets. Guess we better figure out how to survive round 2, huh? Tikel nodded. Indeed, and quickly. Great, Samuel muttered, glancing at the artifact. Just another day in the life of the galaxy's most reluctant hero. The shimmering barrier hummed faintly, casting undulating waves of light across the stone circle. Samuel sat cross-legged on a flat rock, picking at a stubborn burr stuck to his jacket sleeve. Tikel stood nearby, pacing in tight, deliberate circles as she recalibrated her crystalline device. So, Samuel said, breaking the silence, what's the plan when this force field runs out of juice? Because I don't think throwing rocks at those Vervan ships is going to cut it. Tikel didn't look up. The barrier's energy signature is fluctuating, but we should have several hours before it collapses. Several hours, Samuel repeated. Plenty of time to contemplate life, death, and how I became the sidekick in an intergalactic chase movie. You overestimate your role, Tikel said, her voice tinged with the faintest hint of amusement. Samuel grinned. Oh, you do have a sense of humor. I was starting to think sarcasm didn't exist on your planet. Tikel paused her work, tilting her head slightly. Your persistence in finding humor during a crisis is peculiar. Yeah, well, Samuel said, tossing the burr aside. It's either laugh or cry, and I'm saving the ugly crying for when this is over. The quiet was shattered by a distant whine, sharp, mechanical, and growing louder by the second. Tikel's device emitted a rapid series of warning tones, and she snapped her head toward the sky. They've deployed scouts, she said. Samuel squinted upward, spotting 3 sleek, beetle-like drones gliding through the air. Their movements were methodical, their lenses glowing an ominous green. Let me guess, Samuel said, standing up. These guys aren't here to deliver a ceasefire agreement. Correct, Tikel replied. They are likely scanning for vulnerabilities in the barrier. Perfect, Samuel muttered. I was really hoping to be on a galactic hit list tonight. One of the drones hovered closer, its glowing lens trained directly on them. Okay, Samuel said, backing up. You're the alien tech expert. What's the plan here? Do we hide? Do we fight? Do I throw another sarcastic one-liner and hope it confuses them? Before Tikel could respond, the drone emitted a sharp, pulsing light, followed by a low mechanical hum. That doesn't sound good, Samuel said, taking another step back. Tikel moved swiftly, raising her device and pressing several glowing symbols in quick succession. A pulse of energy shot out from the crystalline object, striking the drone and sending it crashing to the ground in a shower of sparks. Nice, Samuel said, pumping a fist. 1 down, 2 to go. The remaining drones reacted immediately, darting toward the barrier and firing thin, concentrated beams of energy. The barrier shimmered and flickered under the assault, its edges rippling like disturbed water. Tikel? Samuel said, his voice rising in pitch. I'm not a scientist or anything, but I think that's bad. Tikel's expression tightened as she adjusted her device. The barrier is holding... for now. For now isn't exactly comforting, Samuel shouted, ducking as one of the drones fired a blast that ricocheted off a nearby monolith. As the second drone closed in, Samuel grabbed a fallen branch, gripping it like a makeshift spear. What are you doing? Tikel asked, her tone skeptical. Improvising, Samuel shouted, lunging at the drone. He swung the branch with all the grace of a drunk fencer, managing to smack the drone's underside. It wobbled in the air, its lens swiveling toward him in what Samuel could only describe as mechanical irritation. Yeah, that's right, he yelled, backing up. I've got a stick, and I'm not afraid to... The drone fired a concentrated pulse, narrowly missing his shoulder and charring the rock behind him. Okay, new plan, Samuel yelped, diving behind a monolith. Tikel dispatched the second drone with another precise energy pulse, but the third was already repositioning itself, its green lens glowing ominously. Samuel, Tikel called, her voice sharp. I need you to distract it. Distract it? Samuel shouted, peeking out from behind the rock. You mean the murder machine that just tried to vaporize me? Yes, Tikel replied, adjusting her device. Distract it, or we will not survive. Samuel groaned, muttering under his breath as he stepped out into the open. Fine, but if I die, I'm haunting you. The drone immediately locked onto him, emitting a sharp chirp. Hey there, buddy, Samuel said, raising his hands. Nice weather we're having, huh? You ever think about taking a break? Maybe try meditation? I hear it's great for stress. The drone fired another pulse, narrowly missing his feet. Right, Not a fan of small talk, Samuel muttered, sidestepping and waving his arms. Over here, you flying tin can. The distraction worked. The drone focused on Samuel, its movements becoming more aggressive as it pursued him. Tikel seized the opportunity, firing a well-timed energy pulse that struck the drone's core. It exploded in a burst of light, sending fragments raining down. Samuel collapsed against a monolith, breathing heavily. Okay, that's it. I'm officially done with alien dodgeball. Tikel approached, her expression calm, but her voice tinged with approval. Your contribution was effective. Yeah, well, Samuel said, brushing dirt off his jacket. I try. And the barrier flickered again, drawing their attention. How much longer do we have? Samuel asked, his tone serious for once. Tikel studied her device. The energy reserves are depleting rapidly. We must find a way to relocate. Relocate? Samuel repeated, throwing up his hands. To where? We're already in the middle of nowhere. Tikel's gaze shifted toward the artifact, which glowed faintly in her hands. There may be a solution. Samuel narrowed his eyes. I don't like the sound of that. Tikel didn't respond, instead holding the artifact up to the barrier. The shimmering energy field reacted immediately, its glow intensifying as tendrils of light reached out toward the artifact. What are you doing? Samuel asked, edging closer. The artifact contains a secondary resonance field, Tikel explained. It may amplify the barrier's strength, temporarily. Temporarily, Samuel echoed. You aliens really need to work on your long-term solutions. The artifact pulsed, sending a wave of energy through the barrier. The Vervan crafts, now visible in the distance, hesitated, their lights dimming as if testing the strengthened field. Samuel let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Okay, so what now? Tikel turned to him, her expression resolute. Now, we prepare for what comes next. Samuel groaned. Of course, because running, fighting, and almost dying wasn't enough excitement for one night. Despite the tension, Tikel's lips quirked in the faintest of smiles. Your persistence is admirable, Samuel. He smirked back. You know, if we survive this, I'm putting that on my resume. The two of them stood side by side, the glowing barrier surrounding them like a fragile cocoon as the Vervans regrouped in the distance. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot, but for the moment they had a chance. And sometimes, Samuel thought, a chance was all you needed. The air crackled with the hum of alien machinery as the Vervan ships descended, their sleek, predatory forms gleaming like dark blades under the faint light of the stars. The force field around the stone circle wavered, its strength pushed to the brink. Tikel knelt at the artifact's base, her crystalline device glowing faintly in her hands. Samuel stood nearby, clutching a metal shard scavenged from one of the destroyed drones. It wasn't much of a weapon, but he figured it was better than standing empty-handed. So this is it? He asked, his voice tinged with nervous humor. We're down to a magic rock, a glorified laser pointer, and my winning personality? Tikel glanced up at him, her violet eyes gleaming with determination. The artifact holds more power than you realize. If I can synchronize its energy with the field... A sudden, bone-rattling blast cut her off. The force field shimmered violently, cracks of light splintering through it like glass. Samuel winced, tightening his grip on the shard. Let me guess. They're not here to negotiate. No, Tikel replied, rising to her feet. But they underestimate us. Us? Samuel said, raising an eyebrow. I'm pretty sure they're just underestimating me. Tikel allowed herself a faint smile. Then prove them wrong. The Vervan ships hovered above the clearing, their underside ports opening to release a swarm of metallic drones. The machines glinted under the pale moonlight as they descended, their movements precise and menacing. Tikel pressed her fingers to the artifact, its surface pulsating with a deep, resonant hum. She muttered something in her native tongue, a prayer perhaps, or a command. The artifact's glow intensified, sending ripples of energy through the ground. Samuel felt a strange warmth under his feet as the energy spread outward, forming a network of glowing lines across the clearing. The drones hesitated, their mechanical limbs twitching as they encountered the unexpected resistance. "Okay," Samuel said, watching the glowing grid expand. "That's new. Care to explain before the murder bots figure it out?" "The artifact is interfacing with the planetary ley lines," Tikel said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "It's creating a disruption field to disable the Vervan's technology." Samuel blinked. "Right, of course. Ley lines. Why didn't I think of that?" Tikel shot him a look that might have been exasperation. The first drone dropped into the grid, its sleek body spasming as the energy field crackled around it. Samuel winced as the machine exploded in a shower of sparks, its remains scattering across the clearing. "One down," he muttered. "Only 1 billion more to go." The Vervan ships reacted swiftly, their underside ports glowing as they prepared to fire. "Samuel," Tikel called, her tone sharp. "I need you to delay them." "Delay them?" he repeated, incredulous. "With what?" "Sarcasm?" "If necessary," she replied without missing a beat. Samuel sighed, muttering under his breath as he stepped toward the edge of the clearing. "Fine, but if this goes wrong, I'm haunting you." He cupped his hands around his mouth and shouted toward the nearest ship. "Hey, you up there? Nice flying, by the way, very menacing. But tell me, do you guys have dental plans? Because you're about to bite off more than you can chew." The ships hesitated, their glowing ports dimming slightly as if in confusion. "Did that work?" Samuel asked, glancing back at Tikel. "Not for long," she replied, focusing on the artifact. The Vervan's hesitation was brief. One of the ships fired, a concentrated beam of energy slicing through the air and striking the grid. The disruption field wavered but held, its glow intensifying as the artifact pulsed with renewed energy. Tikel's expression tightened. "The synchronization is incomplete. I need more time." "Of course you do," Samuel muttered, dodging another blast. Thinking quickly, he grabbed a piece of the shattered drone and hurled it at the nearest ship. It clanged harmlessly off the hull, but the gesture seemed to irritate the pilot. The ship turned toward him, its glowing port charging for another shot. "Okay," Samuel said, backing up. "Not my best idea." Before the ship could fire, the artifact unleashed a sudden, blinding pulse of energy. The grid flared to life, its glowing lines forming an intricate, interconnected web that enveloped the clearing. The remaining drones spasmed and collapsed, their circuits fried by the disruption field. The Vervan ships faltered, their engines sputtering as the field's energy reached them. One by one, they veered off course, their lights dimming as they retreated into the night sky. Samuel stared after them, his chest heaving. "Did we win?" Tikel lowered her hands from the artifact, her posture relaxing for the first time. "For now." The clearing fell silent, the only sound the faint hum of the artifact as its glow faded. Samuel sank to the ground, letting out a long, shaky breath. "Well," he said, "that was insane." Tikel sat beside him, her expression contemplative. "You handled yourself well." He snorted. "I flailed around and yelled at alien robots. Hardly heroic." "Your actions bought us time," she said. "Without them, we would not have succeeded." Samuel looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "So," he said after a moment, "what happens now? Do you go back to your people? Do I go back to pretending this never happened?" Tikel hesitated, her gaze distant. "My mission remains incomplete, but I no longer believe it is something I must face alone." Samuel smiled faintly. "Was that your way of saying you want me to stick around?" "Perhaps," she replied, the corners of her lips curving ever so slightly. As dawn broke over the forest, the two of them began the long trek back to civilization. The artifact, now dormant, rested securely in Tikel's pack. Samuel glanced at her, his tone light. You know, if we're going to keep doing this, we should probably come up with a team name. Something catchy, like the Galactic Misfits. Tikel raised an eyebrow. I will consider it. Good, he said with a grin, because I've got a million more ideas where that came from. And as they walked into the rising sun, the forest alive with the promise of a new day, Samuel couldn't help but feel that their story was just beginning.